Hi, it's Wave McMaster here. I've got a video made for you today. We're going to be looking at the header module in the Divi theme and how to create some really eye-catching, like a really eye-catching header for your page. Basically, using that module, it doesn't have to be at the top of your page, but in this particular video, we're going to pop one at the top of the page, and we're just going to have a bit of a play and explore what's possible with it. We're not really going to go I haven't got anything planned terribly, but I have downloaded some images and created a little transparent logo. And we're just going to have a bit of a play and see what we can actually achieve. Now, this is just a test page, and obviously we're going to be adding the image above this section here. I've just copied a page off one of my little sales sites I used for my web design business, and basically I'm going to pop a header in here. So what I'm going to do, first of all, you see we've got the header here. For this particular thing, tutorial, we want to basically remove this navigation because we want to create a header that really is bold and outstanding. So I'm going to head back into edit page here before we do anything. And this is just to show you that if you want to do this, you can do it as well. I'm going to go into Divi page settings, or page attributes, I should say. Another template, I'm going to change that to blank page, update that. I'm going to, once that's updated, go back to editing with the Divi Builder. And now we get our visual builder loading and we can start to have a bit of a play. So we're going to start off pretty basic and just sort of expand from there. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to add this in here and I'll move it up. So wherever we get this little blue plus sign, I'm going to go add a full width section and add my full width header in there. Tick, and I'm just going to move it to the top of the page. Now, like I said, we're starting off nice and basic. These are just some of the basic settings. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to set up. I'm going to say, so I've got a little tech company logo I downloaded off a stock photo site. Nothing too crazy. I'm going to call it Tech You Can Trust. Now, while we're here, if you are using this in your actual theme builder with Divi, which is the theme builder portion, I do have some videos on it, which you can check out. I'll link to below. You can actually create some of these pages and add them to your theme. So that way, when you use your standard WordPress editor on a post or a page, you can apply and add these layouts into your basic theme template. So if I go over here to dynamic data, I can actually choose to have the page or archive title or post title, and actually even on the background here, choose the featured image. So on the background here, I can go to image and choose the featured image and actually make it something that I can customize very easily using just the WordPress editor and making it part of my theme template. So that's just something to remember if you decide you're going to play with this further. We're going to go back up the top and just work with some basics for now. So tech you can trust. We're going to say we are a tech company creating, say, mentally friendly gadgets. And I'm going to spell that correctly just for the sake of this. Now, button 1, we're going to say sign up for free or something like that. And we can actually add in some information in the body here. I'm just going to remove that for now. So we got our header. Now the background, it's a bit hard to read that white, so for now I'm just going to change that background to black. Okay, we'll add an image in there later, have a bit of a play. Well, actually, we might even go with a gradient for now. So I'll make that black, going to, say, a blue. Now we can make that a little transparent if we want to, maybe darken the blue. And what we can do even is change that to a radial gradient, so that way we can have like something in the middle going out. We can switch it. We can change the direction, which is in here somewhere. Click that, changes it around. And then we have the option of choosing where the gradient starts, where it ends. We could even have it nice and sharp, so we get like a full nice circle there. And we can even place it above the image, which we'll explore later when we start playing around with some of the imagery. So we're going to go through some of the basics, and then we're just going to have a play and see what we can come up with. So to start off with, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in my little logo image. Now, if I go in here, I've uploaded a few images for the sake of this video. We'll just start with this one. Okay, we've got a little header image there. It's just a little bit big, so I'm going to go into my image somewhere in here, we can have a play with, might even be under sizing. Okay, we're just going to go sizing, content width, content. Okay, so let's say here we are. No, image, we were just in here, but okay, this image is just a little bit too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to re-upload the image as a smaller image and return. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my content, to images, click here. I'm just going to drag this smaller image across and upload it. Upload that image, and we have a smaller image we're working with. Okay, so now we've got our image there, and we're going to start to have play. As you can see, everything at the moment is left aligned. So what I can do, I'm going to head into, so we've got a few basic options here, but we're going to have a bit of fun with the design area. So under layout, we can change it to centered. So we get this nice centered thing here. We can go right aligned, which is right aligns it. So if maybe you have an image with some information on the left. But what we're going to do, we're going to stick with centered now and have a bit of a play with that. Now, one thing you notice here, it says make full screen. Now, I'm going to explore this just a little bit. So the way this works is if I click that, it is automatically the full height of the page. So if someone lands, they see this full image in the background or full background, and we can actually add a scroll down icon, which you can see here. When they click that, it goes down. And we can even customize that, change that icon to something else. Maybe we want to go with just a straight arrow. Maybe we want to make it blue. And you've got this nice little arrow people can click and it'll take them down to the next section. So let's play with this in full screen just to have a bit of fun with it. And I'm just going to dock this off to the side. So we're going to go down and just sort of play with some of these settings. Now, like I said, we've got the image here. And if it had a background, we'd be able to put it into a circle by just simply giving it 50% corner radius. And we see we've got this sort of circle here. Let's go back in. And we can sort of play around with that around in the corners if we had an image that had a background. So if I head back into here under images, tech brain, maybe I'll choose maybe this image. It's got a transparent background. Maybe these headphones here. So we've got these here. You can see we've actually got rounded corners. They're not 100% round because I have dialed them back a little bit. You can see if I take that up to 50%, you get a perfectly round corner there. We can play with some borders. Now, because it's actually rounded, it probably, as you can see here, we've got this cool effect there. Maybe we want to make that blue again. And we have like a little border at the top. Then maybe at the bottom, we'll go with a white border. Add that down there. So you can play around with things like that. And if you decide that you don't like that effect, you can click this little button here and just remove it. Now, one thing to remember with the Divi theme is any of the options you have, you can change them for mobile. So we'll have a bit of a look at that again later. We're going to remove all of these options. And basically, we're going to keep going from there. And obviously with that border, we can change to different sort of border styles, such as dots, that sort of thing. But we're going to keep going from there. One thing we will do is add a drop shadow. You can barely see it against that dark background there. I might head back to images. I'm going to pick that same logo. You can see we've got a little shadow behind that image. And because it's square, you do just get a square shadow because CSS doesn't actually add shadow behind the transparency. But you can see that if you decide to put a solid image in there, that's a look that you can have. So we're going to go turn that shadow off. Alrighty, so there's so many different things that we can do. We can have background overlay colors. We can so that way if you do have a full image in there, you can actually have an image which is, or a color that is semi-transparent. So if I click here, I can make it semi-transparent over the image to sort of block it out a little bit, which once again we'll play with. So what we might do at this stage, we're going to add a background image and continue from there. So I'm just going to head back to content. We're going to go to background here, and I'm going to add in, I'm going to start off with a basic image. Let's say we've got this here. So we've got this image, and if we want to, we can even add our gradient over the top of that. So if I click on the gradient section here, it says here, place gradient above background image. So I can do that. But what I can do, instead of having it solid, I can go to this black area here and make that transparent. And if I move this start position back and put a nice little glow behind the image, it actually helps to create some separation between the background and the image itself. I'll also make that a little semi-transparent, and then maybe I'll also take some of the color out of it. Maybe this is somewhere we're happy with. Okay, so we've got this background image now, but one thing I want to show you at the moment, it just sort of scrolls. One thing we can do, if we go to the image here, and this does turn off the gradient if you, a lot of the times if you decide to do it, we can choose a parallax effect. As you see, that gradient is now gone, but this is just while we're using that parallax effect. We have a CSS method, which means it stays in place as we scroll. Or one of the fun and fancy methods everyone loves is called true parallax. So if I click on that and we scroll down, it actually moves at a different rate to the rest of the screen. Now this is very interesting. If I take this picture, which is fairly square, and go for one that's very long like this one, now as I scroll, it also has a very cool effect that way. So what we're gonna do, we actually might stick with this for now. Stick with that parallax effect and allow that scroll. And we're gonna go across over to our design tab now. And we're gonna go to the title text. We sort of skip past, like I said before, that overlay. If I want to make that black and I want to dial that down a little bit, I do have a nice dark overlay over that image. So that way it does sort of cut down that, makes it a bit more easy to separate. We're going to go to the text. Once again, we're going to add a shadow to our text. If I want that shadow to be darker, I can go to this color, have a bit of a play with that there. If I want to actually blur it, I've got all of these. As you can see, that shadow moves a bit there, moves across. We can move the shadow around and change how much it's blurred. So you've got a few options to play with that shadow. Now, it's a pretty cool sort of tool. But one thing we can also do is, you can see we've got our vertical alignment. We can sort of make that sort of bottom or center. We can make text color dark or light. Now, of course, background's dark, so we'll keep it light. And we can go down to our title text. We can even change this font. So under our title text, we do get a lot of image options. Like we can change the text size. We can make it small, large. We got our shadow options again. We can also change how bold it is. We can make it super bold, or maybe we want to make it really light, make it all caps, and we can play with it there. But this one thing that's really cool about the Divi theme is if you go to the fonts, you get a whole bunch of these Google fonts. So you pretty much have an endless supply of fonts to play with. I've got no idea what half of these look like. There's just so many of them. But you can see if you give it a bit of time, it actually does give you a bit of a preview on the actual page itself. Now this would obviously take time to load. As you can see, we've got something a little bit different here. Now the fonts I've shown so far aren't great, but if you do take your time, head to the Google Fonts website. You can actually explore what fonts they have much more effectively than trying to scroll through here. What I might do is we'll stick with one of these. Something, let's just go for a condensed font. So there we go, something like that. Tech you can trust. At the moment, I want that to be heavy. So tech you can trust. So that stands out a bit. Now, I'm starting to think it looks a little bit out of place. These two fonts don't match, but I'm not too concerned about that right now. So that is Barlow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go down to my button 1, customize the styles, and under the fonts, I'm going to choose Barlow semi-condensed. I'm also going to make that capitals. So one thing I'm going to do also while I'm here is that button's a bit hard to see. So what I can do is I can even change the background color. It's the button 1 icon color, I should say. So the icon color is blue. So I'm going to make that white again. But under the button options, we can actually make the text size bigger or smaller. We can change the text color to red or blue or white, or the background, we can choose that blue color we were talking about, or even once again, go for a gradient, which is another cool effect, or even choose a background image. So we can even go for something like this. Just bin that gradient. For some reason, it's not showing up, so I'm not sure why that's happening. But the option's there. Might be something worth playing with. For now, we'll stick with blue. So we've got our header here. If you've got some really eye-catching imagery, you've got that as well. We're going to come back and play with that imagery a little bit soon. Now, one other option you can do is, let's say you've got two buttons you want people to press. So I'm actually going to go with button 1. I'm going to actually make the text size a bit smaller. I'm going to head back. This is something I like to do a lot for giving people an option. Back to our text, I'm going to go button 2. I'm going to say learn more. And you see it looks much like the same, the old thing before. And of course, if you want to know where you can add your links, under here, button 1 link, button 2 link. This is so where you know where they go. And you can even assign like an ID anchor if you want to actually have this scroll down to something on the page, or you can just simply have it go to another page. So with our button 1 here, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to extend button 1 styles. So all buttons on this page, extend. So because this is button 1, for some reason it doesn't seem to want to actually affect button 2, but that's all right. What we can do is simply go down to button 2 and style it again. So we're going to go button 2, custom styles, and we're going to find that font. So we're going to scroll back down to this font, which is Barlow, condensed, capitalize it. And what I'm going to do this time is on the background color, I'm actually going to add it, but I'm going to make it transparent. I'm going to go down, well, maybe I won't make it fully transparent, but just a little transparent here, so you can still see some of that background. Oops. Sorry, black, slightly transparent, so mostly transparent. And the border color, we're going to go with white so it stands out. And we're going to make that border, whoops, that's a letter spacing. So yep, you can play with that too. There's so many options here that sometimes if you don't look at what you're doing, you'll grab the wrong one. But we can actually make the border nice and thick or thin. And if you want to, you can even change the border radius so you get round buttons. Obviously, that looks a bit funny next to a square button, so we'll go back to a square. So now we have these cool buttons here. Well, let's say we want it to sort of light up a bit when we hover. So what I'm going to do is, with the background color here, I'm going to change the hover setting. So there's a little mouse clicker here, and that background is now going to become blue, but we're really going to crank up the color on that. And we're going to make the border color. So once again, I'm going to click on hover. Go on hover. We'll make that yellow just for the sake of it. We'll go back now. Okay, what we've done here. So I've actually made a mistake there. Like I said, we're having a play here. To go back to the hover. So we're on the hover this time, and we're going to go with that blue. Okay, let's go back to the desktop. So now when we hover, we get that sort of blue background. That's what we want, that blue background on the hover. And we go back to the desktop. Okay, so I've got some issues here. For some reason, the hover isn't changing, but you get the idea. You can sort of play with this a fair bit. This could be a CSS issue, but it's a minor thing. It could be something I've styled into the website itself, which I do believe I have styled, but it also might be showing up on the live page, but that doesn't really matter too much for now. But you can see that you've got two buttons here. You can quite easily play with that. Now what we're going to do now is, so we've gone through, we've changed some of these buttons. Obviously we can change some of the sizing. We can make the content width much thinner if we want to have it really long. Or we want to make sure it doesn't go beyond a certain width. So you've got a few, you can give it a max height. There's a few different options there. Change some of your margin and padding. This isn't going to have a huge effect on what we're actually doing here at the moment, but it's just one of those things that if you turn off, go up the top here, let's turn off that full screen for a minute and go down to spacing. If I add in 0, you see, I go to 0 here and 0 there, we've got hardly any space above or below our little call to action. But what I can do is I can slowly, if I link these up, I can increase that. So let's say I make that 200 pixels. I can actually add a nice amount of padding here. There is a bit of a funny situation going on with the background there, but yeah, it's just one of those things. You can actually, if I go in here, if I take that background, if I turn off this, remove that altogether. Okay, so we're getting some funny issues here. We still got our parallax that's working. So let's change that background and just see if it fixes that for the moment. Okay, so it's just a bit of an issue with what we were looking at. So we've got this new background here, and so yeah, we get a few bugs here and there. It's not a perfect theme, but you can get a pretty good, have a pretty good play with it, get some good effects. Now, what I'm going to do quickly, I'm actually going to exit out of this, and so we've got that image there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the actual full width row itself, and I'm going to add that background image we just had before. Actually, whoops, not the background color. Trash that. I'm going to actually add this background image in here. And I'm going to let's just leave that as it is. So now I'll go back into our full width header. Now this purple area is the row, the header. The header is a module that sits within this row. So I've actually added a background to the row, and I'm going to play with the background on this actual module. So as you can see, we've got our section here with the background. We've got our parallax. But if I go into design, there is there's some filters we can play with. I can actually change the hue a little bit, change things around here, change that hue. So that way, if I've got any sort of colors on there, I can adjust that. I can even play with, I can invert things if I want to. I can take that opacity down so we get this cool semi-transparent effect. So as we scroll, we get this really sort of weird loopy effect where things actually sort of blend together. So there are a few little options you can play with to get something good. Now, if I turn off that parallax effect, I can also just change that here. So I'll actually backtrack a little bit. We'll go back down to our filters. We're going to reset these. So we'll reset filter styles, back to the content, back to the background, and we're going to pick this cityscape again. So you can see, the background blend has that turned off. So this is it. Normally, we can play with some of these. We can make it screen, and so that has made a huge difference. Overlay. Because we got a background color, actually, it's causing that issue. So we get rid of that background color, or we simply make it 100% transparent. So we're actually having a few issues with this one again now too. Not sure what's going on there. We're just going to X out of that for a second. But you can see just the kind of effect you can have. So it's pretty cool. And if you want to, have a play with it, it's you can change obviously the position of the background. You can change, whether you want it to repeat or not, that sort of thing. It's pretty cool. Now I'm not sure why this isn't working. It should be appearing like this. So I'm just going to exit this for a minute and see what result we get. So like I said, it's not 100% perfect, but with a bit of playing, you can get a pretty good result. All right, so it isn't working there either for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why that is. But, I mean, you're talking about playing with, you're sort of getting really to the nitty-gritty and playing with some weird effects there. Once again, not sure why that background isn't working. So change that to normal. So maybe we want to add a color in here, make it blue. So you can see with the background color, we can actually have a bit of a play with it. Luminosity, so we get this nice effect there. So with the background color added in there, you can actually get some pretty cool effects that way. So I guess it really depends on what it's compatible with. So that's a nice dark effect on the blue, which means if we go back to the color and decide we want to make it red, we can change that as well. So you can get some pretty cool effects with your imagery that way. Like I said, some of the stuff I haven't actually played with that too much. I tend to design my images in Photoshop so they look exactly the way I want them to. So in that way, when I upload the image from Photoshop, I've got the effect that I'm after, and yeah, basically I'm ready to go that way. So once again, going into button 1, I might make that background color red now, since it matches the background. So you can sort of see basically what effects you can do. Now, one other thing we can do also is under this transform area here, we can play with it a little bit, make it bigger or smaller. Just reset that. One thing you can also do is rotate. So you can take things and rotate them, which is, it's not the best effect in the world, but if you want something just a little bit different, you can sort of get that rotated effect there. So that's something else to consider if you do want to have a play. If we've got some skew here, I can skew this. And these are actually linked at the moment, so if I reset that and unlink it, I can get a nice straight skew if I want to. Something like that. You can get like a cool effect that way. Once again, something you can play with. I'm not personally too fussed about playing with these settings for transform, but it might be something that's right up your alley if you want to really customize and go from there. Animation is pretty cool. So when you land on the page, you can have things fade in. Now, one thing, I've actually got a website I've done which has like a sort of like a dark background with a few basic key lights. So I've got the same image lit so that when you come in and fade, it looks like the room is lighting up, which is pretty cool. You can have it slide in, and you can change the direction. So let's say we're coming in from the right, or we can come up. We can change the duration so it goes for longer. We can actually even add a delay. And we can really ramp up the intensity so it comes in, boom, really strong or just really subtle, like this. So maybe we take that duration back, pop that intensity down. You sort of get the idea, nice and subtle. So you can play with that. The starting opacity can even be slightly off. And you can even change, so if we take that duration back a little bit, up that intensity, you can play here with the ease. You can have it just perfectly linear, ease out, so it sort of slows down at the end. And you can even just loop the animation if you want to, which I think would be very annoying if you're landing on this website. So obviously we'll just have it play once. So playing with the animation can be pretty cool, something to play with as well. So, I mean, you can see a lot of the options, what you can do with this. It's pretty handy. If I go back over here, you can even change. If I get rid of this image here, you can just have the text if you want to. We can add the header image in here instead. And what that does is it puts it at the bottom. Or if I start to play with the alignment, it'll actually be left and right, or right and left. So you do have that option as well to further customize the look of your header. But you can see just how easy it is. I simply found this image in the background for free on unsplash.com, which I'll pop a link to below in the description. And just playing with some basic settings and a little stock logo, you get a pretty cool looking site. You got some pretty cool fonts. I haven't actually used this font before, but I don't mind it. I think it looks pretty good. But yeah, seriously, just have a play with it. There's so much you can do with this header image module. A lot of the modules in Divi are just as impressive, and yeah, it's definitely something worth checking out. So I hope you liked the video. A bit of a longer one again. And of course, if you want to try out Divi, head to I'll pop a link on the screen. It's an affiliate link, so I do make a commission if you decide to buy, but I use this for my web design business. Use it for all my websites, built 100 websites on it. It's an awesome piece of software. Highly recommend you check it out. And thanks for watching the video. If you like it, please give it a like. If you want more like this, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll release more videos like this for you. And yeah, have a good day, and I'll hope to see you again soon. Thank you.